Hello there guys, today I just wanted to make another tattoo vlog progress update. Where I last left off, I had just had the red pumped into these eyes. And as you can see, it's been a pretty good success. They're lighter than they were when I showed them off, which is actually exactly what I expected and what I wanted. Um, so yeah, they're just like kind of a paler version of what they were. You can see obviously there's still some milky healing skin over top. Um, these two here will look more like this when they're fully healed. It's just these areas were a little more traumatized than up here. The closer you get into this soft tissue close to the armpit, generally the worse heals. But this side actually did a little bit better. Probably just some different amounts of scarring in those areas due to the fact that I've been tattooed so many times. I think this is probably like the 12th or 13th time I've had this area tattooed. So there is different amounts of scarring there. And you can see in the light, the skin is still definitely healing and probably will be for, I would say, probably the next month. Be in some form of healing. So that's typical when you're doing multiple layers like I have. Yeah, so that was a major success. I'm glad that they're red. You can see them from kind of across the room. They showed up in our Remy Reacts recently. So they're cool, but they're not like super punchy in the face red. That's what I didn't want them to be. And I actually think that they're only going to get redder as time goes on, not less. Seems to be the case with all of this stuff. If it changes at all, it gets like brighter. It's almost like in the mix of the white and the black, whatever's put in later seems to be a little bit more dominant. And that's what would explain doing several passes. Say if I did more red here, there'd be more red ink mixed in with the black, and then the red would show up even more. It's just, I think there's some kind of a balance that happens under the skin. It's tough. I don't know the science on it, but I can give anecdotal stories about my own experience, obviously. So I had this tentacle done last week, and it's healed, this little guy. So it healed great. Obviously, this is the one that I got done just before the lockdown, and it's looking pretty handsome as well. And this is the new tentacle that we did this week. You can see there's a little bit of red in this one too. You probably just barely see it on camera. There's two little red eyes in this tentacle. And I think this is the darkest tentacle yet. If it stays this dark, it'll be great. I mean, realistically, it's going to be the most visible one so far just because of where it is. But then these two here will be really punchy too once they're done. And this red will, again, be more like that when it's finished healing. And what I really like, and why we're putting the red in these tentacles now too, is we have this nice effect that we're achieving with the red touches in even my chest piece, my head tattoo, the eyes on my chest, and then we'll tie it in with little red spots in all the different tentacles. And it'll kind of make this whole piece come together. As I mentioned about the red in all the tentacles, we put two red eyes in this tentacle as well. They're probably a little hard to see, but there's just going to be little touches of red in each one just to kind of bring everything together. And another thing we've been talking about too recently is when we get to doing the highlights, like the white highlights in the teeth and the spikes of these tentacles, we're actually going to be doing silver first. Sorry, fighting with the camera. Just because we already know that white ink highlights go in sort of like the first pass they go in sort of like a grayish white. They don't go super white right away. You can get super white eventually, but we were thinking that a silver might be a lighter gray or like a shinier gray. And I mean, if we can get red to work, like, why not try silver, right? It's just, more than that, it's fun to experiment, but if it works, we'll have a stronger gray balance going into the later white highlights. So what I'm talking about is each of these tentacles will be getting highlights And then upon those highlights, they'll be getting further highlighted later down the road. So it should make sense by now to people that this project is nowhere near finished. And I'm really happy that I'm working with an artist that has the long-term vision for this stuff that I do. Because there are some artists out there that if you were to pitch them this idea, I think they get lost along the way somewhere, or they get burned out on it, or frustrated, or tired of working on it. But Rick, my artist, is in his own way, he's a bit of a visionary, and he sees this semi the same way I do. I mean, I'm sure we see it piece by piece differently, but having that good working relationship where we're both wanting to see just exactly how much we can do and how good this stuff is going to work. That's really been helpful for this project. And I think that if you're getting into a bodysuit project, you should get on that level with an artist. And that's what I was trying to do with my first one, but it didn't quite work the way I wanted it to. This time I'm getting exactly what I wanted out of the arrangement. But anyway, not to get on to too much of a rant, these red eyes, I'll probably touch them up once, I think. We were already talking about doing one more coat of black in here, and the solid black, just to make them even darker. Because around the edges, they're quite a bit darker than they are on the centers. So when we do that, we'll probably hit the red as well. But being this skin is fairly scarred, and it's probably going to take probably a month or two before we bother doing any more in it. Because we don't want to risk any kinds of problems just because we're moving too quickly, that kind of thing. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I've got a new aftercare on this one. I don't know if I mentioned, but it's called Inky's Ink Block, I think it's called. I'm usually pretty married to my aftercare strategy, but the shop just got a new product. It's like a spray-on bandage for a tattoo that, if it works, it seals in the plasma and it creates sort of a protective coating. So all of the stuff that would get lost in the wash, or say if you got a dog jump up on you or something, you weren't expecting it, like that kind of a thing when you're laying in bed, and if you have animals, this has kind of created a protective coating. It feels a little bit like having a thin saran wrap on you, but it only really stays on the area of tattoo. So like these areas up here got hit with the spray, but they've already started peeling off because it doesn't stick to healed skin. Again, this is a thing I don't know the science on, but here it's almost like grafted onto the healing skin. So when you're finished healing, it's supposed to peel right off. Now, if it stays as dark as it is right now, this is going to be my preferred healing method for all of this. But obviously, next week when I do an update, I'll be showing that off, how it healed and whether it had any problems. I will say it hurt a bit going on. It had a burning alcoholic like kind of feel to it, almost like rubbing alcohol. So yeah, it had to go. We had to spray it, I think, 3 times before we got a really solid kind of solid feeling bandage on there. And yeah, it's just really strange how it's only affected the tattooed area, and you can touch it. It's completely protected from everything outside. So yeah, it's been interesting not washing my tattoo again. It's almost like when I used to use Sanoderm. But Sanoderm had its own problems. Like, I always thought Sanoderm and like Librafirm and all that stuff, it was all great. But if it broke early, it was all problems. Like, if you lost that plasma that was sealed in there, then you were just sitting there with a dry bandage. And once the seal was broken, anything could get in there. And if anything did get in there, well, I think the only times I've ever, well, no. One of my tattoo infections was after a Sanoderm. So even though I do like Sanoderm and the protection it offers, it has risks too. And I don't think it's suited for huge areas of tattooing that well, like what I was doing with the blackout. I think it's better suited for, say, you got a little tattoo. Like, it would be great for what I'm doing now, probably, but now I'm pretty routine with my healing. I always have been, but these days I'm really, really zeroed in on what I want to do each time. Anyway, yeah, I'll be making another video next week. Show off how this is healed. Kind of the state of the red eyes. I expect them to be more red and less glossy white. Right now they look almost like a white in places. But that's just the skin over top is healing. That will be much redder when that shine goes away. And yeah, I'll just be doing kind of an update next week, because I actually don't have a tattoo for the first time in a little while. I said I was going to go hard when I got back up and running, and that's exactly what I've been doing. I'm getting some real big stuff out of the way, and it's been fun getting after this again, but I could use a break. So anyway, I'll be talking to you guys again soon, and have a good day.